What are you up to right now?
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us. As we do every week, our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
Aloha, everybody. We're the Von Erich. I'm Marshall Von Erich. I'm Ross Von Erich. And you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast. It's your fan, Dave. Here today, I got a couple good ones on. They are third-generation wrestlers. They are the grandsons of the legendary Fritz Von Erich and the sons of the legendary Kevin Von Erich. They are also the MLW World Tag Team Champions. Ross and Marshall Von Erich. Guys, how you doing?
Oh, good. What an intro, man. I'm pumped now. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're happy to be on the show.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I want to start off in the beginning. When you guys were growing up, how long before you knew, what a big deal your family was in Texas? And, going in school, too, was there ever any, jealousy from other people? Or was everybody good to you? How was that growing up, being a Von Erich?
Some of my earliest memories, this is Ross, by the way, some of my earliest memories of going to the shows with my dad, I'd be with my mom in the stands or whatever, behind the, in the back. And then I just, I remember leaving shows and then fans, crowding the cars, we'd leave. But it was just normal, I never had anything to really compare it to. And then I went to the same school as my Uncle Kerry, my dad, my uncle, all my uncles. And I had the same, third grade teacher, so small town kind of thing. And, and it kind of goes both ways, everybody knows, the name Atkinson, there's, affiliated with Von Erich. And, so sometimes, you'll get a ton of favor, and they'll treat you great. And other times, they treat you like, you don't exist or, you're annoying or whatever. Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons. Sometimes that if the teachers, it kind of trained us as adults to try to come off as non-intimidating as possible because, sometimes if people thought we were going to be entitled or snobby when they first met us, because we're both pretty quiet, and so sometimes I can come off as snobby, and so we would try our best not to, but yeah, the good old yes ma'am, no, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, that goes a long way.
Kill them with kindness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys broke in. I saw that you trained with your dad, obviously, but you also trained with Harley Race. Is that a fact?
That's right. 2012 is when everything started for us. Harley Race had a wrestling academy, and we were both playing football. Wrestling was always a dream of ours, especially younger, because of course we just wanted to be like our dad. Our dad is just a great father, a great role model, and we grew up watching the old world class tapes and stuff, and we'd be wrestling each other the whole time we were watching, jumping all over the bed. It didn't matter where we were. We'd be Walmart, Home Depot, we're wrestling in line, and so it was just kind of what we were so used to, and then actually have the opportunity to go and go to a school and really see what we're made of, and compare yourself to other guys that have been doing this a long time. It was really, really awesome. So we went to the Harley Race camp, and that's when we got invited to Pro Wrestling Noah. It was two scouts were there, and they brought us to Pro Wrestling Noah, or invited us after. And so we didn't really know what we were in for, but I think now Pro Wrestling Noah is one of the best things we could have done for our career. My dad, it was his way of, putting us in the fire, and, we definitely didn't have anything handed to us over there. It was, off our first 3 months with just bumps, and it was all about learning to respect the business, and it just gave us a whole new perspective of wrestling, and it was great for us.
In your guys' time in Japan, did you find that to be a more physical style as well?
Oh, most definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, Japan, it's any preconceived notions we thought we had about, wrestling, because we're both, athletes trying, looking to go to, further our careers in high school, college athletics. And so any preconceived notions we had about it being like hokey or whatever, American style, whatever, it totally changed in Japan, with the hard hitting and, everyone wearing mouthpieces. And our first day there, we went to a show at Kurikan Hall to kind of watch the product. And we were watching these guys put mouthpieces in, right? What is that all about? And then these guys are just killing each other. I saw one of the guys lose a tooth and then over an elbow exchange. And we were sitting there after the show, went over to my dad and like, did you just see that? And he's like, welcome to Japan. And so it was just, but it made us closer as brothers. We've always been really close, but it definitely made us closer as brothers. We had to have each other's back no matter what, and we just didn't. In Japan, you got to earn everything, and it's just because your name, they'll be harder on you if you're third generation because they don't want to take the easy route, and so it's all about respect over there, and I think. Out of respect, they were harder on us, and it really helped us. Looking back, I'm thankful for, Segura, all the guys that were, rough and tough with us, so, now we look back and we're grateful for it and we feel like we grew a lot from it. Yeah.
A question specifically from Marshall. Did you start off barefoot, or was that something you decided you wanted to do to honor your dad? How did that come about, and what was the adjustment like?
So I've always been barefoot. I just hate shoes, and I've definitely picked that up from my dad. And it's less weird living in Hawaii, but going into not getting looked down upon for having dirty feet. So I'm always never wearing shoes. But when we went to the Harley Race Academy, my dad was trying to make me buy some wrestling shoes, and I just hated them so much. I was getting blisters, and I was trying to break them in a couple of days before we went. And I got to the school. They said, train in whatever you're gonna wrestle in, and I told them I wanted to be barefoot, and that was the best decision for me because also I like to travel light, and so I can just throw my trunks in my back pocket, and I'm ready. I can take my trade wherever I go.
That's awesome. Given obviously the up and downs of the Von Erich legacy and everything that happened, do you guys feel any pressure right now carrying on the Von Erich legacy? Is that something that, weighs on the back of your mind, or is that something you guys, you're just doing you right now? How does that work?
I would say it's just all about perspective, how you look at it. And I don't mean to sound preachy or anything, but, before anything, we're Christians and we put our, God has opened this door in wrestling and everything that's come about. And so we really haven't tried to force anything to happen. We really just let the doors open because any door I've tried to open has shut in my face, whether it be football, track and field, whatever it be. And then wrestling is the only door that stayed open. And that was a dream of mine when I was a kid, but I kind of let it go because I didn't know, that's a big dream. And I don't know, it was just weird how the wrestling door stayed open. But yeah, at first, being young, I could definitely see just how the wrestling fans looked at my dad in Texas, Israel, and like all these places, how they had such a respect for him, and seeing what my grandfather and my uncles did. And so for us as brothers, we go out there, and as soon as the bell rings, we're going to give it everything that we have due to the blood, sweat, and tears my uncles and our family have done for the name. And so we feel like we wouldn't be doing it justice if we didn't go all out. But we don't look at it as really pressure, really, because God has us here for a reason, and so we really are just we're going through the doors that he opens. But it's just been a magnificent ride with my brother. We get to travel the world, and it's to know that the pressure's not on me. When it's over, God will close the door, and the door hasn't shut. So we're gonna keep on going. We haven't really tried to push anything to happen. All this stuff, MLW, it all just came up. We didn't send them any tapes or anything. It was just one step at a time. And we definitely went through a stagnant part of. We started doing indie shows in the mainland, and we didn't want to go to WWE, so we weren't really sure what we were supposed to do. But the door didn't shut, and so we just we were just trying to stay faithful. Keep even if there was 12 people in the crowd, out there and wrestle like it's a main event, you know, wrestle or just give it all we have. And, you know, and eventually MLW reached out to us with the perfect plan for us, the perfect scenario that we could work with, which was live in Hawaii and you know, and wrestle, be a professional wrestler. And a lot of companies wouldn't work with that because, you know, living in Hawaii, it's expensive ticket, it's far away. They want us to move. And learning a little bit of what my dad's story, you know, family is important. Family is everything. That's where, you know, we draw a lot of our strength. And so, especially when my dad's in his latter days, we love spending this time all on the same island. We go to each other's houses every day, and it's we're just making the most of it during this time. But it really is it's a beautiful, awesome life. I couldn't be happier. I'm glad God shut the doors that He needed to shut, because if it were up to me, I would have been a car salesman or something. I don't know. I'd have been something else.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing. Now, one thing else I want to ask you about before I get into MLW is, well, two things. One, you got to wrestle with your dad in Israel, I see, which I'm assuming was a really big deal. I want to hear a little bit about that, but also Israel, because for whatever reason, the Von Erichs have been hugely over in Israel. Little insight into that, and then what was it like teaming up with your dad?
Yeah, so in the 80s, Israel only had one TV station that would play, and World Class was on it, and you know, so you know, every day during it would come on like right at their Shabbat every Saturday at 7:00 is like when they were allowed to like watch TV and relax again or whatever and stuff, and they had just had that one channel. So I think it's the only time in history, this is what I heard from some Israelis over there, the only time in history that anything has ever had 100% ratings, you know. And so wow. It was like it was a part of, you know, so many people's, you know, lives growing up, a part of you know, after Shabbat we watched the Von Erichs, you know. It's just like it was like almost tradition, you know. It was for that, you know, for that little period of time, and those people carried it with them. And so, you know, now here we are today, you know, and we still have a great relationship. And my dad and all of us were lucky enough to get, and you know, somebody came up with the idea to, you know, one more match for my dad in Israel. And you know, my dad didn't have any plans to have a retirement match. He never did, but he said if he ever did it, it would be, you know, either Dallas or Israel. And you know, and my dad didn't know the magnitude of Israel until in the 80s he went down there, and they just heard they had great TV ratings, and so my dad, you know, was like, "What, the real Israel? They're Von Erich fans? Are you serious?" And we've always been fans of Israel. And he said that he got there, and there was just the one time that he's gotten weak in his knees from the sea of people. And he said that it was the biggest crowd he's ever seen. And he got out of the plane, and the guards were saying, "This is for you. They're here because of you." And my dad couldn't believe it. And they told him, "Don't look up. Don't make eye contact, because they don't want to make any, you know, they don't want to have an uproar in the crowd. If he gets the crowd hot, then there's barricades up." And so as he's walking through the barricades, he waved it like a lady that was yelling for him. And he said as soon as he waved, the barricade started shaking and moving, and he said the ground rumbled. Oh. And so the guards picked him up over his shoulder. He thought he was in trouble, and they ran him to the police station. And he said they sat there and watched World Class tapes for about 3 or 4 hours till the crowd died down. And that's when he knew that there was something big going on, something special going on in Israel. And it was just unreal. And the fact that we got to go there with my dad and have his retirement match, it was just so many bucket list dream come trues at one time. It was unreal. It really was unreal. I got to sit in there. It was the first time in a long time that 3 Von Erichs were in the same ring, and sitting there learning with my dad. It was like a training session. We were sitting there talking about moves. My dad was like, "Hey, well, watch what I do here," and he'd get so we'd tag him in. And I remember we'd literally be in the corner, you know, and he's you know, giving us advice and you know, telling me what I should do next time I'm tagged in, and you know, tag me, that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of stepping back. I'm like, I'm gonna look back one day and just think this is really surreal. There was one moment in the match where I'm like, this is just a really surreal moment right now. And it was the first time our nieces and nephews ever watched us wrestle live. We brought the entire family. All 20 of us were there. And so our nieces and nephews, my brother-in-laws, my sisters, everybody was there to see it. And it was just, you know, it was like time stood still. I look over to the left, and my family's in the front row, and I look to my right, and my dad's sitting on the apron with me. It was just I couldn't describe it. But there was definitely a lot of there was a lot of speed bumps in the road. My dad had the flu the day of the show. We all had a stomach virus on the plane. It was definitely a test, but I don't know. As soon as that bell rang, my dad, like I was saying, he's a good role model. He like nipped up. He's like, all right, boys, let's go. And the stranglehold came on, and the place roared. It was just so cool.
That's awesome. I'm glad I asked you guys that. That's a great story too, with your dad in Israel too. Wow.
Thank you.
So, I saw the Dark Side of the Ring documentary last year, and the ending with you guys all hanging out with your dad. I remember thinking personally, I was like, I really love to see these kids get a shot in wrestling. And then I saw MLW, because I've been following them for a while, announced that you would be coming. And I was like, all right. But man, to me as a fan that watches that product, I don't think they could handle you guys any better. What has it been like working from MLW, and who are some of the people helping you out behind the scenes?
We always knew that the perfect thing we would know it was the perfect thing when we're able to stay here in Hawaii, with our family and stuff, and have a promotion, work with us and, fly us out and do all that kind of stuff. And MLW was, we got offers, to move and, work with other, pretty big companies, and we feel like this MLW came in at just like the perfect time. Court Bauer, that guy, he's one of my favorite guys to work for. He came in, he saw something in us that we didn't really see in ourselves yet. We were just going through the doors that opened, and Court, he said that, he said that he believed in us. And then when he brought us in, I don't know, it was like he knew what was going to happen before it happened. He'd see the future or something. That's what it felt like, because he was telling us how big it was going to be, and he was right. It was just getting bigger and bigger, and it was just him bringing in at that timing right after the Vice thing. He was talking to us before the Vice thing aired and before we even talked to Vice, and so it was. But it was just perfect timing, because we finally came up with an agreement of staying in Hawaii and working with them, and then the Vice thing came out right before our debut, and so that timing of that was just unreal. But we really could not be happier with the promotion we're at, and the guys in the locker room. We got like a brotherhood in the locker room. These guys, everybody really does love each other. It really is like a family. I'm sure everybody's pulling for each other. Everybody wants MLW to look good and do well. And there's guys like Low Key. We've been getting advice from him for years in Japan. We used to sit down with him, have coffee with him, and just pick his brain, because he's one of our favorite wrestlers when we started going to Japan. And it was just cool to see an American fight with the same ruthless mentality as the Japanese. And you see a lot of the Americans kind of lighten up on the Japanese, and Low Key would just give it to him, and that's what we respected, and that's what we wanted to do. And so to be able to be in the locker room with Low Key again was just like unreal for us. And we've made good brotherhoods with a lot of the guys. Harry Smith, Brian Tillman Jr. is one of our good buddies now. Douglas James. There's so many guys in the locker room that it's been surreal. And then we were also good buddies with Tom Lawler before all this. We trained together, and we pick his brain. He was giving us a good perspective of just the fighting world, and to bring that into wrestling, and that's what we wanted. We want our style to be just unusual, and like a bar fight really. That's what we're going for, and these guys are just awesome to pick their brains and work with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like, too, is the music they have you come out to. It's very reminiscent of Stranglehold. And
yeah, we love that. Yeah, we're stoked for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then, like the way you guys debuted and, fighting with Contra, and there's these brawls. Like you said, it looked like a bar fight. I remember the first time you guys were in there with Contra, and I just saw this wild fight happening. And I'm like, well, I texted a buddy of mine. I was like, this is the damnedest thing I've seen in a while. You have to watch this. But
yeah, it was definitely unique. Like after the match, I remember thinking, like, did that go like really well, or did it go terrible? Like we didn't know. We had no kind of feeling of how it went. But we got in the back, and Court was like, welcome to MLW. He was happy with it. I'm like, okay, good. He's happy. We're happy. But yeah, it was definitely a weird match. I feel like for a lot of the fans.
Well, one thing I really liked was the placement. First ever pay-per-view. You guys are going against the Dynasty. You guys are like modern, just classic old school style baby faces, real easy to get behind. And then the Dynasty, just absolute shit heels. Nothing really redeemable about them.
Yeah.
And so it's just great. It kind of reminds me of the old school Von Erich Freebirds. And I remember your dad saying, this isn't Texas versus Georgia. This is decency versus filth. And that's kind of what I thought with you guys versus the Dynasty. And I think it says a lot. Court believed in you guys to put you on the very first match of the very first pay-per-view, and you get the straps. What was that all like?
Oh, man. That was like a milestone in our careers. You know, I mean, as soon as we started talking, and it was in Chicago, a place that, you know, we've always dreamed about wrestling in, you know. But before that, I remember going in just being like, or when MLW first reached out to us, we were thinking, you know, one day what a dream it would be to actually get the tag straps, you know, and it you know, came way sooner than we thought, and we were just way sooner. Yeah, and, you know, we felt a little, you know, unprepared or whatever, but I just remember the feeling of just total accomplishment and just being that was one of the high points of our career, definitely. And when being in Chicago and not knowing if people were going to know our name or know who we are, that was, you know, that having that question mark, but I just know that, you know, nobody can deny or you can't get behind a guy that did all that he has. And so when we got in there and to hear the Chicago fans behind us, it was just like, we looked at each other and it was this confirmation, all right, let's fight. It was just an amazing feeling. And yeah, to win the belts after, that was, you know, that whole night we were just sitting there, we just look at each other and start laughing. We just couldn't believe it. Like, man, this is insane, you know, and we're still, like, it's as long as this, I know we're in this quarantine and this COVID-19 stuff's going on right now, and but the longer we're in quarantine, we haven't got a chance to defend our titles in a while, but it's going to be, I'm afraid we're going to be the longest reigning tag team champions without having to defend our title.
Right. I mean, I'm glad you guys mentioned Chicago, too, because I've never been there, but I will say as an old school wrestling fan, that is an arena whenever WCW or even WWE or ECW went through, I'm like, man, that is just a wild, raucous crowd. They love their wrestling out there.
Yeah, it was. They just appreciate the art of wrestling, and you know, it was just so awesome. And I can't say enough about Court Bauer. He really, to us, you know, we feel like he's like the modern day Paul Heyman. You know, ECW was full of, you know, misfits. They had a just problem child, you know, the men in the locker room, and that's kind of what you have at MLW. Guys that have been, you know, kicked out of the locker room for fighting. It's just, you know, it's you know, it's weird how you put it all together and you got this like this family and you know, and Court Bowers, you know, is definitely just a great leader, a great guy to get behind, and he gives us before most of the shows, he'll give us a speech and just pump all of us up. And we'll run to a brick wall for this guy, you know, and so it definitely gets everybody ready to go after right before the show.
Now, one more question about MLW. Dallas, Texas, intimidation games. What was that like coming back home? I mean, you definitely seemed like you got quite the response.
Well, for us, that meant so much to us because, you know, it was about 7 years ago. We were, you know, we were young boys in Japan and doing the Japan thing, and then we came to the mainland. It was one of our first shows in Texas, and we were in this little country town in the middle of nowhere. It was Burleson, Texas, or right, like north of Burleson, and it was just a small country town, and they had a sign that our main event tonight, the Von Erichs, and we were sitting there looking at that sign, and like, man, these people are coming to see us for the main event of this town tonight. And it wasn't a huge crowd, but that right there changed a lot of things for us, and it made us, you know, like, it was, you know, maybe that there's someone else behind all this, and it's not just us, and that was really... That was a really heavy moment for both of us being the main event. And so for MLW to go to Dallas, it was, you know, it was our first time in Dallas, and to be Von Erichs and see that MLW believes in us enough to do a show in Dallas was just, it was unreal. Yeah, and you talk about pressure. You know, the greatest amount of pressure is not from people say, oh, you can't accomplish this, or you'll never be able to do that. It's when people believe in you, you know, and especially you're going back to Dallas, you know, and they put you in, you know, a main event kind of style match, and you're like, that is the greatest amount of pressure to us, you know. So as far as our career in MLW, that was our biggest feat. It's easier to have the mindset to want to prove people wrong, but when people believe in you and you want to prove them right, that can be a lot of pressure too. And so that Dallas show was, you know, everybody was pulling for us, and you know, it was definitely a heavy night for both of us. But when that bell rang, I don't know. I know as cheesy as it sounds, I really felt like all my uncles, my grandfather, everybody was watching it, and it just made me so proud to be a Von Erich.
You guys seem like you, like a lot of performers, feed off the crowd. Have you seen any of these empty arena matches? And how challenging, if you haven't been in one, do you imagine it is to work without fans?
Well, we worked some indie shows that were almost like that. They're borderline, borderline. You know, but definitely the crowd helps so much, and you know, I think there's definitely pros and cons from it. Some guys, just from what I've seen, will still act like there's a crowd there when they fire up and things like that. But you know, if there's not a crowd there, I think that we as all of us as wrestling fans can really appreciate the art of wrestling. And you know, I don't think there needs to be as much showboating or anything. I think it's more, you know, this is just a fight, you know, and a classic wrestling match. And so I've enjoyed watching it just because, you know, it's just it's unique, it's different. It's just a classic art of wrestling. But the crowd, it definitely has a major factor in it I'd say for everybody, because it's you know, if you have a new move you want to try or something, or you just take that chance and you scream and give a lariat and the crowd's behind you, it really is. It makes you want to do more and you know, want to give the people more. And I definitely I couldn't appreciate the fans, MLW, and just our fans at BE Nation, that the support they give us. It really is. It's just having people believe in you. It makes you want to prove them right. Everybody.
What are you guys up to right now during this quarantine? Anything going on? Are you working on anything, or?
So we've been farming. We've been on the Von Erich Ranch. It's about 37 acres, and we're all spread out. It's like a compound, and so we get to be in quarantine all together. So that's been kind of nice. And we got a waterfall that we go to as a family. We'll jump in and spend time together, and it's definitely been. You know, my nieces and nephews are growing up, and they've been going to school, and so it's kind of like time standing still for a little bit. I get to rekindle relationships with my nephews and nieces. I just had a son, and I'm getting to spend all this time with them. So I really am nothing but grateful, and it's been one of the best things that's happened for our family. But my heart goes out to everybody that's, you know, lost family members and that are taking this hard. And it's definitely not. It definitely is a serious matter. But as far as the quarantine goes, we're trying to make the most of it, and you know, but we do miss wrestling. I can't wait to get back in that ring. It's all I think about, all I dream about.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, I can relate, you know, like we got it pretty rough over here, but I'm in a pretty good area, but I'm still working. Business is good and podcast is going great. So, I mean, you can take some negatives and you can turn them into positives.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know? See,
that's all. And it's rare to talk to a guy like you that has a good perspective. That really is. That's refreshing for us to hear. That's so key. That is key. And you know, if you're happy, you're not working a day in your life, you know, and that's really how it is. I mean, we wasted a lot of our career dreading and being nervous and scared before matches, not being able to eat the night before, and you know, wasting those days that we could have sat there and enjoyed it. And so now we, you know, for the past couple of years, we really have just take it moment by moment, hold each other accountable about staying positive and being grateful that, you know, this is a door God opened, not us. And so we really are. We try to just constantly keep each other up and encourage. And you know, when we have meet and greets, that, you know, these people paid to come see us. They drove 4 or 5, flew 5 hours to come see us sometimes. And so, you know, we had a match in Israel. People flew from Ireland. Someone from Texas came. It was just like, it was unreal. The globe. People traveled the globe to come see us, and it's just one big blessing. This whole thing for us. It's been just nothing but fun.
I'm sure it can be very overwhelming at times too, I imagine.
Yeah, man, it can. Sometimes you just gotta sit back and just look at all this, and it's, because we're human, so we're day by day, and circumstances can shake us and be scary and stuff. But if you look at your life like a big highlight video, you see all the good, and I really am happy. My dad definitely had a nuts life, and losing his brothers. And I only have one, but the one brother that I have, we're extremely close. We know the other one's gonna say before we say it. We know, and my dad had that with five other men. 5 other men were just like him. Now my dad, he kind of sticks out. He's different, but he had 5 other guys that were just like him. And to lose that, it must have been a really heavy burden to bear. And so being able to wrestle and come home and have these road stories, and my dad relate, it's like he has his brothers back. And so we've gotten even closer as a family through all of this, and it's especially Japan, coming back from Japan. And, my dad, he said that we left as boys and we came back as men, and it really was like that. We were like brother lions. It was just us versus the world. That's what it felt like when we were in Japan. Because everybody wanted to test you. Everybody wanted to see what you're made of, and so we just had to fight our way out. But man, we would do it all over again. Morifuji, Morishima, Ogawa-san, Kobashi-san, all these men sat there, and Goshizaki, Kitaro, Aoki, all these guys, they taught us so much, and they taught us the hard way, and now I'm nothing but grateful.
Before we wrap up, are there any goals you want to get out there for 2020, and anything you want to promote?
We have Twitter. We both have Twitter. I'm Marshall Von Erich on Twitter, and then Ross Von Erich on Twitter, and we share an Instagram, Ram Von Erich, and that's Ross and Marshall. That's what it stands for. But as far as goals go, we're just continuing to just go through the doors that open. I know I keep saying that, but that's really what taking it by moment, taking life lightly. But I don't know. I still want to be an astronaut. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but that's definitely a goal.
Wow, man, I love to hear that. That's awesome. Outside the box.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. This was a real treat for me. I do this with 2 other buddies. We're all kind of we're quarantined now a little bit, so we're sending stuff in, and they are definitely jealous that I got this interview. So,
man, we really do appreciate it, and it really was refreshing to hear your perspective on this. Just being positive during this time. It's scary for a lot of people, but to have a joyful conversation in a time like this is refreshing. I really appreciate that, man.
No, absolutely. And for me personally, I always have I always worked out, but I had a bit of a sweet tooth, and in this time I've cut out the sweets. I've upped my diet. It's kind of I'm home. I'm why don't I make some positive changes while I'm here? So it's just
you're a good job. That's the way to be, man. I wish I could say the same, but my sweet tooth has kicked in, and my gym's closed, and it's been a bit of a battle, but that's still refreshing for me to hear.
All right, guys. Well, hey, have a great night. Thank you so much. Well, it's night over here, but thank you so much for doing this, and maybe we'll get to do this again down the road, man.
Hey, brother. Man, it was great talking to you. Appreciate you, bro. God bless.
God bless. Have a good night.
This is Rudy Gonzalez of the Texas Wrestle Academy here in San Antonio, Texas, and you're listening to the Working Stand Podcast.
It's the Working Fans Podcast with Dave, and today we have a longtime wrestler, started in 1984, and a longtime trainer, Mr. Rudy Gonzalez. Rudy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Great, man. Great to have you on. I was doing a little research, and you can help me out with this. I saw that you were trained by, this is the people it listed, Manny Fernandez, Tully Blanchard, Chavo Guerrero, and Ken Timms?
Yeah, and the names go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Back then, we didn't have an actual wrestling school where you trained like now you train to be a wrestler and stuff. Actually, I started training in 1982. Southwest Wrestling did have a wrestling school, but it was mainly Larry Lang was the trainer of that, and he did a lot of just amateur wrestling, a lot of cardio stuff and stuff like that. And I guess that was the start of your, if you continued, you would later go on and train to be a professional wrestler. But that ended up dissolving. And they asked me if I could help train some guys here and there, and I did. but I didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know, and it was mainly just, let's get in the ring and practice doing this or whatever. And then when I, you know, somewhere in there, you know, they asked me to you know, I was traveling with the group also and selling T-shirts and stuff like that. And then somewhere during that time, they asked me to referee some matches, and I did. And then, you know, on occasion, maybe like you know, Manny Fernandez would say, "Hey, what are we doing tomorrow morning?" You know, and so I was open to anything, so I was like, nothing. And so, well, meet me at the ring at, you know, at 10 o'clock in the morning, or Chava would tell me that, or Ken Timms was like, hey, you want to do some cardio? Sure, all right, meet me at the junction where we did our TV shows. Meet me at the junction at 11 o'clock. And, or Dick Slater would say, you know, when a guy does this, you should do that. Or, you know, different guys gave me different little tips here and there. So I learned a little bit from everybody. Tully Blanchard was like, one day he came in and he's like, hey, let me teach you how to do a body slam. And I said, okay. So he told me where to put my hands, all the other stuff, whatever. And he scoots me up and he slams me. And he's like, how does that feel? I guess I never took a body slam before. So
right.
You know? And so all in all, he ended up giving me like 10 body slams one day. And I never gave him any though. And so
Smart guy.
that's how I learned how to do a body slam. By taking them 10 times in a row by Tully Blanchard. And the rest of the day, the next 2 days, my back felt like it was blown up. It was just like, you know, to that point, I'd never felt that way before. And then as time went on, then you get used to it and stuff like that. But yeah, I lift those guys because they were the ones that really gave me the most time. But I mean, there are a lot of guys, you know, in the dressing room. It was like a classroom in itself, you know. They just always giving you tips and advice here and there, you know.
Now, would you say you had a pretty good entry into the business? I mean, I've heard some stories where guys, I mean, I'm sure they definitely, they tested you, but you've heard some brutal stories too of guys getting legs broken and stuff. It sounds like you had a lot of people at least willing to help you out.
You know what? In all honesty, you know, and I'm not, you know, trying to sugarcoat nothing. But I said it before, though, but I never had a guy that ever tried to abuse me or try and, you know, break me out, I guess. I don't know. I hear guys that say, oh, yeah, you know, you hear the Hulk Hogan story.
Right.
You know, the guy that broke him in, snapped his ankle, and you hear Al Snow talk about, you know, Ole and those guys would, you know, or whoever would nail guys and stretch them and stuff in the ring. And I've seen guys do that, but it was never done to me. I was always treated right, you know, and I think a lot of it had to do with I gave all the older guys the respect that I felt like they deserved. And that's just the way I was raised. I was always yes sir, no sir, no ma'am, yes ma'am.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I do this? Can I help you with that type of stuff.
That'll open some doors for you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and no one ever told me, but I did it. No one ever told me you got to carry in the veteran's luggage, and I did. If I was grabbing my stuff, hey, you want me to grab your bag as well? And you know, yeah, sure, okay. And I did. You know, I was never told this, but I did it. I was always the guy that drove guys around. I was never told you got to pay your dues by driving everybody, but I didn't mind. And to this day, I enjoy driving. When I go on road trips with my guys, you can ask them down to, you know, the most recent trip we ever made, who does the driving, and they'll say me, because I enjoy driving. You know, so I was never abused by anybody. Closest I can say I was tested was when the first day I worked, I had a match in Laredo, Mexico. It was against a guy named Solar. And luckily, you know, due to my amateur wrestling training, which wasn't a whole lot, but it was something. Solar tried to stretch me, and I could tell, you know, and I knew, and I didn't let him. And I mean, I'm not saying I was fighting back with him and stuff. I just wouldn't let him stretch me. And so we went to the back. He told me, you know, I did well and stuff. And then the next week, I went back there. Another guy named Guerrero Negro tried to do the same thing. He wasn't as, you know, years later, or later on, I found out he wasn't as skilled. Solar was actually an Olympic wrestler. Guerrero Negro was just a guy that knew how to shoot. And then he tried to do the same thing same thing. I wouldn't let him do it. And then the third week was a guy named Mano Negro, I think it was, and he tried to, I shouldn't say shoot on me. They just tried, and I wouldn't let him. And then, you know, I guess those were three guys that, you know, that were testers, I guess, or I don't know. And so then after that, my matches were a lot easier, and guys, you know, but I was never abused as, you know, breaking into stuff, you know.
No, that's good. That's good to hear. You debuted in 1984, right?
What was that again?
Did you debut? Was it 1984? Was your debut?
I actually, my first match was February 6, 1984.
Wow. How many different territories did you work? I started watching you, I want to say the first time I remember you was like in the 90s. I saw you doing some enhancement stuff with WWE, but you had a long career before that.
I started with Southwest Wrestling.
Okay.
Blanchard, with Joe Blanchard and Tully and Manny, all those guys down there. And then Southwest shut down, and a guy named Fred Barron took over, and he started a group called Texas All-Star Wrestling, and I worked with them. And it was based out of here in Texas. I worked briefly for World Class, and then Fred was actually the local promoter for World Class Wrestling, and then he bought out Southwest Wrestling and created Texas All-Star Wrestling. And then when Fred ended up shutting down, and I did a couple of trips to Florida and, different other spots, but nothing like, where I lived there forever and ever. So when Fred shut down, by that time, the independents started like sprouting up. So there are a few guys here and there that did some shows around Texas. And then one day Dusty Wolf asked me if I was free to to fly to, I might have been like Indianapolis or something like that, or I was sure for what. And he said, well, Vince needs some guys, and so, would you mind? And I said, and he told me your flight's paid for, you get paid this much money, your hotel, if I remember correctly, I think the hotel was paid for also, and I was like, sure, So I flew up and did some enhancement stuff with WWF, and then I started going down to Mexico, like I said, and that was like 3-4 days out of the week. And the time that I would come back to the States, it just so happened that it was time for another WWF loop. So I was doing that back and forth, and then Joe Blanchard called me one day, and he said, "What are you doing for money?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing this and this and whatever." And he said, "Would you mind helping me with some stuff I have to do with World Championship Wrestling and for NWA?" And I said, "Sure, what do I got to do?" He goes, "Well, I'm the event coordinator and I need help doing stuff. So would you mind helping me?" So, the thing was that Joe was, he had a bad hip and he was, it was hard for him to get around stuff. So I was going to be the guy to drive him around and help him do whatever he needed to do. But he was also in charge of one of the rings. And when I first started, that's what I did, was the ring. So I started doing that with him, and then one day somebody, I think like Ricky Morton or Kevin Sullivan, said, "Hey, this kid can work," because they knew me from Joe and stuff. And so I got to do a couple of shows for NWA, WCW. I refereed for them, and then at the same time doing the WWF trips, and then going back and forth to Mexico. And then before I knew it, I was, and doing the local, indie shows around Texas. And then before I knew it, Sean called and asked me to help him run a school. That was like in 1998.
Now, you seem like a guy, you're a hard worker, from what I can tell. For you, what was probably one of the more challenging things about the business? Was it the travel or the bumps, or what was, for you, one of the more difficult things?
Staying busy. I mean, the travel's always going to be there,
yep.
No matter what. I mean, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to travel. The bumps, they're there.
Right.
You can't say, I am not going to bump for you. Just staying busy, man, because I came in at a time when, all these big guys were running all over the place, and Kerry Von Erich, Lex Luger and stuff. And so there really wasn't a whole lot of room for smaller guys like me. I could work, but I'm very upfront about this. I could work, and I understood working. I just wasn't the bodybuilder guy. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the most charismatic guy. I'm not Eddie Gilbert. I'm not Tom Pritchard. I'm not Brad Armstrong. I'm not, So, my opportunities were kind of limited. But, and that's why I went to Mexico, because there in Mexico, believe it or not, I'm 5'8", but in Mexico, I'm a lot bigger than a lot of guys there. So I got a lot of work down there. But the most challenging part, I guess, was just staying busy at that time, and uncertainty. You just didn't know when you were going to work again, or when was your last working day, or the politics and stuff. That I've never had a problem with that. That was I just try to stay away from it. I got a lot of guys, whether they were on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. But yeah, I would say the most challenging part was just staying busy and paying the bills.
Obviously, you work with, you said, the Texas Wrestling Academy with Sean there. Do you have a preference between, being an active competitor or teaching? Do you have one that you like more than the other, or both different?
I honestly, in all honesty, I didn't get into pro wrestling to be a wrestler. I didn't, and that's probably why all the other stuff, the charisma stuff and all that, that's probably, all that's probably tied up into that package there. I didn't get into pro wrestling to wrestle. Like, I'm the pro wrestling to learn the wrestling business. But in high school, after high school, my dreams or whatever were to be a football coach for my high school. Yeah, and so so what drew me into Southwood Wrestling was the fact that Tony Blanchard was a quarterback here in San Antonio. He was a high-profile quarterback.
Yeah.
And then there was Manny Fernandez and Bruiser Brody, and Wahoo was here. Wahoo, I recognize his names from playing for the New York Jets and I believe the Houston Oilers years ago. Ernie Ladd came through here. Ernie Ladd played for the Oilers, I believe.
So many football guys in that territory back then.
Exactly. And so that's kind of like what drew me in, the relationship with football and wrestling. There was a time in actually in '98 when Sean called. The very week that Sean called me to run a school, I quit. And it wasn't the first time I'd actually, and I'm not proud to say this, but at one point I actually walked out of a ring because I was just so frustrated, so angry with the way things were and that type of stuff. And so when Sean called and asked me, and so back to, when I quit, I actually just walked out and just grabbed my stuff. I gave my payday back to the promoter, back to the booker, who coincidentally was Jose Lothario.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who also ran Sean's school. So when Sean called me and he asked me to help him with the school, the first thing I told him was, I really don't want to wrestle, Sean. He said, I'm not asking you to wrestle. I'm asking you to help train my guys. And I was like, well, in that case, then I'm in. And we hadn't even talked about money yet. But as far as, wrestling and training, man, I would much rather train guys and develop guys and, watch them become from nothing to something. The biggest, and I'm not saying it because it's him, but one of the, actually two of the biggest accomplishments that I feel like I've done is creating two young men that were, eyes wide open and, wet behind the ears of Brian Danielson and Brian Kendrick. And then 20 years later, Brian Danielson is like the biggest name of the business, one of the biggest names of the business, and Brian Kendrick he's up there as well.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story. I watched wrestling since the 80s. I'm 43, grew up on the Hogans, and, I transferred, started really liking the Bret Harts and the Perfects. And out of the last 10, 15 years, if there's one guy who has constantly kept me interested on the main, top level national scene, it's Brian Danielson. Like, his matches are just so compelling, and he's so good at he can be a great heel too, but he's a really good babyface, and he's one of those guys that really draw you in and you want to root for.
The first thing Brian Kendrick asked me, and Brian Danielson was right next to him, was, am I too small? Am I too small to do this? And Brian Danielson looked at him and then looked at us. It was me and Sean standing next to her. Like, yeah, are we too small? Because they're the same size.
Right.
And Sean said, no, not at all. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm the same size as they are, So if I laughed up to that point where I was in like 15 years, 16 years, so if I was still in it, I didn't see why they couldn't. So it was just a matter of putting in the work, and both of those boys have, and so seeing them develop the way they have, man, it's like, you could put the world title on me. You could, I don't know. It's nothing can compare to seeing those two boys, and anyone else that I've trained come from, point A to point C or wherever they're at and be as good as they are. So yeah, training part by far is what I enjoy doing the most.
Now, from a training perspective, was there anybody that you saw right away and you knew almost instantly, okay, this guy could be a star? And on the flip side, which is somebody said, I don't know, and that guy ended up being like a big surprise to you?
All the time. All the time. Sean had some, Brian and Brian, I'm not going to say we didn't think, we knew they would, we both knew they would do well. Just not, I didn't think they would do, Sean may say differently because he knows more than I do, I guess, but I didn't think they would be at this, this far in the game. I didn't think they would be the names they are now. On the other side of that, man, we had guys, there was a kid that came in from the University of Washington, I believe. And I remember pulling him up, Brian something or other. I remember I pulled him up to look him up and stuff. And he was like an All-American. He was, but the only thing was he had knee surgery in his senior year. And so his position on the draft dropped quite a bit. And so he said, well, screw it, I'll try wrestling. And he was a big kid, athletic as hell. He just had a shitty attitude, And, you just don't do that with Sean. And there are a couple other guys, man. There was another kid who was on the practice squad for the Washington Redskins. His name was Kevin. Huge kid, man, and again, athletic. If you would have put the Kane mask on him, you couldn't tell the difference. He was just, yeah, and we called him Kane. But I don't know, just something. It's like the bigger guys, the guys that we were like, oh yeah, he's gonna make it. Those are the guys that they just put in, and I know I'm putting like a blanket over all of them, but might as well. But the bigger guys that came in and you're like, that guy has it, they were the guys that came in and put in the least amount of effort. And that sucked because we always preach to the guys, you get in what you put in, you take out what you put in. And so these guys, because I guess they were bigger and stuff like that, they just didn't feel like they had to do as much. Meanwhile, Brian Danielson and Brian Kinder, they talked about it many times. Meanwhile, the smaller guys would try and find as much time to get in the ring, and there were times when training was over, and those guys would, hey, can we stick around and try some other stuff? Can you hang out with us a little bit longer and teach us some other, and shit over. Meanwhile, the bigger guys were like, I'll see you tomorrow, coach, and then walk out.
Yeah.
And, so the smaller guys, it seemed like they had a chip on their shoulder of some type. They worked harder. They, the matches were always, like you said, compelling. They weren't always punch and kick and that type of stuff. It's just weird. So, I mean, there was, as far as, the guys that we thought we would make it and didn't, there were several. And a lot of them were the guys that were 6'2" and 250 and those type of guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I started jiu-jitsu last year, and there were a lot of guys. A lot of it came down to attitude, like we've been talking about. Like there were guys, if you were humble and you'd go in and you're willing to learn, even if you weren't good at first, you could get better. But if you had a bad attitude, even if you were like athletically gifted, and there was a more experienced guy who could take you down on the mat and submit you, and you didn't handle it well, you knew that guy wasn't going to last very long.
Yeah, I mean, and I tell my students this all the time. I mean, I'd much rather work with a guy and train a guy that's humble and, is willing to work hard. Doesn't have to be the greatest athlete in the world, doesn't have to be the most talented, doesn't have to be the most anything. Just come in and willing to learn and work than a guy who is the biggest athlete, who is the most talented, who, those guys seem to feel like they're entitled.
Yeah.
I guess. And it's just, especially in pro wrestling, it just doesn't work that way, man.
No, and that's a great life lesson, too, because, I've managed a store before, too, a grocery store, and it was always like the kids who were willing to try and had good attitude that you wanted to work with, even if somebody else was just naturally better and quicker at a job, but if he just had a poor attitude after a while, you're just like, just get this kid out of here. Get me someone who just wants to do his job,
It gets old. There was a guy we were Brian and some of the boys had just gotten their tryout with WWE, and so of course the buzz around the gym was, who's going to be next? And so there was one kid. He was like 6'2", and he was stacked pretty well. He was a good-looking kid. So he said he was about 6 foot, I'd say. I don't know. And so somehow or another, the conversation came up where I'm going to get a tryout and stuff like that. And somebody said something like, well, what makes you think you're going to get a tryout? He goes, well, I'm just as big as Hunter. And me and Sean, we were talking, and we heard that, and Sean, turned around, looked at him, and whoever he was talking to was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I almost look just like him. And he looked at Sean, he goes, isn't that right, Sean? And Hunter's a beast.
Right.
I've seen him in person, and these two look nothing alike. And Sean just like, oh, I can't tell the difference. Yeah, you're right, I can't tell. The guy didn't catch the sarcasm, so he goes, see, I told you.
That's great. You were part of an angle, I think, in Ring of Honor for a bit where, I don't know if I want to call it an angle, but some of your students would wrestle and they would have you in the corner. How was that? How was that relationship? How did that come about?
So when Sean was running his promotion, Rob Feinstein came down and recorded some matches. Rob Feinstein and Doug Gentry. And got to meet them, good guys, helped them out with whatever they needed help on. And they were nice also. And so then they were down here, I guess, for a week or so, for a weekend. And so then a couple of years, a year or so later, now I'm stuck with Sean gave me the promotion, so I'm stuck with everything. And I'm not Shawn Michaels, so I'm trying to figure out a way to get my school out there, and the students and what have you. So I'm scrolling through the internet, there was a guy named, I don't remember what his name was, but he ran a promotion. He tried to run a promotion called Major League Wrestling or something, or Main Event Wrestling.
Okay.
And so he couldn't get anybody on that show. He said, on my next show, I'll bring you up here with bring your student fee. I said, all right. At the same time, I'm talking to Rob Feinstein. They're putting out a buzz about starting a promotion as well. So I messaged Rob, hey, you think maybe, I don't know if you remember me or not, this is Rudy Gonzalez down here in San Antonio. And Rob was like, yeah, we got to know who you are. Sure, no problem. So we talked a little bit back and forth. Meanwhile, the guy that was running the main event thing, he ran a show, and I believe everybody's check bounced, and it was a big mess. So I was like, screw that. So Rob said, I can't, it was Rob, Doug Gentry, and Gabe Sapolsky. I didn't know Gabe at the time, and so Rob said, I can't guarantee you a spot, but if you want to come up here, if anything opens up, I didn't want to have to put a couple of guys on. I said, all right. So I got my guys together, and I said, hey, in a few weeks, who wants to go to Philadelphia? This is what's going on, and I really did. I really had a good feeling with Ring of Honor because Rob was involved, and the way it sounded, and some of the guys they had on there. I never met AJ Styles or Amazing Red or Xavier or some of those guys, but I read about them on the internet. And I told the guys that I really have a good feeling about this. It's a good opportunity. Plus, they'd already had Bryan Danielson on the show and Brian Kendrick, and so my guys, I had a bunch of guys that said, all right, let's go. So we went up there, and sure enough, Gabe and Rob and Doug, they gave us the first match, I think it was, and it was a Texas Wrestling Academy challenge or something. And so, and that came out really good. The boys all worked hard, and, same. I try to have my guys mirror me as far as yes sir, no sir, that type of stuff. I guess they, I guess they rubbed, the powers that be the right way. And so when the show was over, Gabe came up and said, if you guys want to, if you guys want to come up here again, I'll have a spot for you guys. And so we just started going up there. And before you knew it, it was, I took some good guys up there. I took Paul London and Michael Shane and Hernandez and Masada, it was like an all-star group. And then there was Fast Eddie and Don Juan. And so everybody, and then on occasion, they would, I'd bring up another student and they would put them in, and maybe they worked out, maybe they didn't work out. But, that's how it got started, and to this day, I have a good relationship with Rob Feinstein and Gabe. Doug Gentry passed away a few years ago, rest in peace. But, and it's just a matter of, treating the opportunities like they mean something, and, they saw that, and like I said, to this day, I have a great relationship with those guys.
Some keys to success here, if people are listening here. Good attitude, networking, and timing are all important in success.
Exactly.
In my research, I came across something else you were involved in. And I'm going to say this. I grew up on old school wrestling, and there were a lot of stereotypes back in the day. This shit would never probably fly today. But if you know where I'm going with this or not, I don't know, I'll tell it. But you were involved, I want to say it was a skit where JBL was patrolling the border of Mexico and not allowing anybody to come in. He was playing this heel character to get heat, and I was just curious how this came about. But like I was saying, there's no way this shit would ever go on right now, but it was interesting, I have to say. So how did that happen?
So JBL and Eddie Guerrero were doing their little program.
Yes.
And so Bruce Pritchard calls me, and he asked me if I could find, somebody to fill that spot of, he didn't tell me what it was for. And he just said, he said something like, he said something like, do you have any of your friends, or can you get, like, a Mexican family? Even the way he...
Right.
Even though he presented it was today, he'd be like, what are you talking about, man? Are you crazy? But he said something like, can you put together like a Mexican family, like your typical Mexican family, like a father and a mother and a grandmother and like a bunch of kids? And I'm like,
do you have a family lying around?
But he's not lying, though. And I was like, yeah, sure, let me see what I can do. I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, sure, yeah, let me,
Right.
And I called a couple of friends of mine that I knew, a couple of workers and stuff, and they're like, well, what's it for? What's it, who's it for? What are they going to pay us? What's it going to be like? What? And I'm like, I don't know, man. All I know is that, this is what they asked for, and I can tell you, because Bruce didn't tell me anything else, and then I can tell you that it may be worth your time. It may be worth it. And so the two guys that I called, they're both like, nah, man, we're not going to do it. That's messed up, And so I called Bruce up, and I told him I can't find anybody. So Bruce said, why don't you do it? And I was like, all right, sure, what I got to do? I said, I don't have my kids, I had like 3 kids at the time. They're like 3 and 4 and 7, and I didn't think the mom would go for it. I was like, I don't think I can get the mom and the kids to go along with it, but, he goes, don't worry about it. He goes, we got somebody anyway. We got somebody. I said, all right. So, I took Paul London up there with me, and so we did this deal, man, and when I got there, finally, Bruce finally explained to me, he said, okay, you guys are going to be illegal aliens, and you're going to get caught crossing the border, and Layfield's going to catch you guys, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and so that's how it came about. We started like around 6 or 7 in the evening, and we didn't finish till like 1 in the morning, and we only took like 5 takes. And it's just the process of doing it, recording it and then looking at the video and then trying to reposition stuff or whatever. I didn't realize it would take so long. But at the end of the day, we got compensated. I got compensated very well. It was we did it. I think it was JBL's ranch. It might have been his family's ranch or something. And we went to the kitchen afterwards, and Bruce opened up a briefcase with money. And I was like, "Holy shit!"
Timing, man. Just agree to do it.
I didn't think I'd earned this much money, but then he goes, "How much do I owe you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Bruce. To me, it was nothing."
Right.
And he started counting off hundreds, and I was like, "Holy shit!" So the cool thing was we did that, and then like 2 weeks later, WWE was in San Antonio, like for SmackDown, and so whenever they came through, I take some guys to get like a little tryout or whatever, stuff like, or work as extras and stuff. And we were in the ring in the afternoon, and I was standing off to the side by the ramp, and in the corner of my eye, I see Vince McMahon walking down, and so I didn't think anything of it. But then I put my attention back on the ring, and I feel him grab my shoulder. He's like, "We just want to tell you thank you for what you did. It was greatly. It's going to help the storyline greatly. Really do appreciate it, man. It was very tremendous. I loved it, and it just really complimented the whole deal and stuff. And this is like Vince McMahon telling me this. And so obviously I was like, "Well, good, yes, that type of stuff."
Right.
And then they showed it on the Jumbotron or the Titantron that night during SmackDown, and you could hear people in the audience. We're at the I guess the time was the Coliseum, this huge venue, and you can hear when I came out there, you could hear some people like, "Hey, that's Rudy Gonzalez," that type of stuff. Eddie was very, "Thank you, man. That was very cool of you to do that." And Layfield's, said thank you as well. I mean, it was I was just trying to help the company. It was very cool to do also.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll tell you what. Even though I didn't know you were doing that at the time, I remember that angle very well. Like when it first came out, and it was different. And I remember it got good heat on the angle. It made JBL a great heel. So I mean, hey, it worked.
And I think it was called like one of the greatest moments of SmackDown history.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny.
But yeah, you're right. They couldn't do that. I don't know. Maybe they could, but I don't think it would be better not to do something like that today.
We're definitely in a very more sensitive culture. I would say that.
Yeah.
But what are you up to right now?
Right now, I just got through washing my truck and vacuuming. I'm getting ready to make a trip to New Mexico for a couple of days, even in the social distancing era. Just trying to stay safe, man. Just trying to, hope this thing passes through. And I don't know what I would say getting back to normal, but who knows what normal is going to be in a few months or a few weeks, or I don't know,
Yeah, I do look forward to the day when we can have, and I know there's bigger things to worry about, but I do look forward to the day where we can have wrestling with fans in the arena again. That'd be nice to see.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right. There are other things more important, but then again, when I was, and I brought this up to other people as well, was when I came in, one of the things I was told was pro wrestling fans come to see the wrestling shows to take their mind off of everything else in the world. You got the guys that are, construction workers, you have the doctors, lawyers, you have the professionals, you have the, blue collar guys sitting in the crowd, kick his ass, that type of stuff, cheering and booing, and you have poor people, you have, well off, you have all different people from every corner of the spectrum, and they're all sitting there just forgetting about, and if there was a way to do this stuff, and WWE's doing a very good job, I think, and Impact, I guess, are doing a good job of trying to keep the product out there, and people sitting back, and it's a little different now because the fans aren't boo, yay, that kind of stuff. The fans now are like, oh, they messed the spot up. Oh my God!
You're right.
Oh my God! Hey, just enjoy the matches, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just enjoy, I'm sure, because I've been in that position, I'm sure they're not really, let me put it this way, I'm sure it's not that easy to sit there and go through all the motions you go through in a course of wrestling match in front of nobody.
I'll say this as a fan for many years, like I never noticed it, but you're watching the match and I can tell like when some people are instinctively playing to a crowd that's not there. But then I've noticed in some other matches where the people that are more vocal and maybe a little louder and can talk trash during a match, their matches seem to get a little more over with me. I get more invested in that. I'm like, okay, so they're verbally kind of pulling me in.
Right. It's a different deal, man. I mean, I admire those guys because, especially the younger guys that are working because they've never, this is a new deal to them. They're used to being in front of, at the AT&T Center or whatever, the big arenas and stuff for Raw and SmackDown. And, a lot of the older guys, are probably like, just shut up and get out there. Because, that's just, back in the day, man, even though we talk about, old school wrestling stuff, there were some shitty crowds back in the day that, and the attitude was you'd do the same stuff you would do if there were 5 people or as if there were 500 people. If there's five people, you want to try and draw in and bring in more people and build up the audience. And guys, they don't understand that, So I get it, and
And I will say this, guys like Bryan Danielson, I saw a match he had the other night with Cesaro. I can tell, like, they're probably used to having been in that position before. And you can tell, and it shows in a match where they go out there and just concentrate on telling the story of their match. And it's more engaging because of that.
So nowadays, okay, you're exactly right. Years ago when we were starting, when these guys were breaking in at Sean's place, we would do a TV show, and we'd have 300-400 people, whatever. Mainly because it was Sean, partly because it was Sean's promotion, that we drew so many, but it was also because the kids were out there working their butts off. But I really feel like if you just said, these wrestling students are going to put on a show, we wouldn't have had that many people. So I think part of that had to do with Sean being out there. But when we would go to the towns, there were some places that we did, shows at where there were 20 or 30 or 10, and Brian, I remember those guys like, how are you supposed to wrestle in front of these people? And me and Sean were very adamant with like, go out there and just do your thing, just work your ass off. Just, we were very adamant about it. It didn't matter how few there were, just go out there and work. And so now, when the first match I saw was I think the first match was Brian with Gulak, Drew Gulak, and they beat each other up. That was like one of the first matches, one of the first no audience matches they had. Yeah, they went out there and beat each other up, man. It was like, and I was like, holy shit. And my girlfriend Micah was like, they're really laying it in. And I was thinking, well, that's how we taught them. That's how at least Brian anyway. I guess Rory caught on, or Drew caught on, but that's how we taught them. Whether there's 5 people or 500, you got to go out there and perform.
Is there anything you want to promote before we let you go?
My wrestling school, Texas Wrestling Academy. If there's a lot of schools out there. There's very few that actually have trainers that with the experience. And I'm not really knocking anybody, but it has to be said. I mean, it's just based on what we talked about. What we just talked about was just doing stuff the right way. And there's a lot of schools that a lot of trainers like, if you don't draw anybody, you suck. And that's not true. It's just if you don't draw anybody, you just got to work harder. And so if you want to learn how to do this stuff the right way and have a chance and be relevant and have come from a reputable school, Texas Wrestling Academy _SA is our email address. That's our Facebook page, Texas Wrestling Academy. And just say, hey, I want to be a wrestler, and I'll send you all the information you need. And even though we're in this coronavirus thing going on, I mean, we're doing some stuff to try and work around it, smaller groups. I'm starting another class. I'm starting a group June 1st, and it means dividing the groups into groups of 5, 6 or whatever. That's so be it. But yeah, I mean, Texas Wrestling Academy, that's the place where you want to go if you want to learn how to do the stuff correctly.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you so much, man. This was great. I appreciate your time. You're a great storyteller. This was really good, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. Anytime.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the 5-3-1, where we take our top 5 lists on a particular subject, debate it down to a top 3, and then further debate it down to a top 1. This week, we're doing top Texas wrestlers. First off, we got Jesse from New Hampshire. He's got Steve Austin, Dusty Rhodes, Dan Hansen, Terry Funk, Barry Windham, and he's got 2 honorable mentions, Dory Funk Jr. and Kerry Von Erich.
Not bad, not bad. Man, Dory Funk Jr., old school.
Yeah, very much so. Next up, we got Ryan Conway from the Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling Group. He's got Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Steve Austin, Eddie Guerrero, and JBL.
Hey.
I'm sorry, guys. I missed that. I fell asleep when you mentioned Dory Funk.
JBL's on the list, though. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it might be one of the only times he pops up, but he's somebody that I don't think you think of him as much on the Mount Rushmore of Texas wrestlers.
No,
obviously, being the longest reigning SmackDown champion, he belongs on some list. But the problem is that by the time he did that, he wasn't really thought of as a Texas wrestler anymore.
yeah, but there's just so many great Texas wrestlers, too. I think that's why he might not make this list on a lot of
Oh, absolutely. Jose Lothario's coming up.
Oh, Super Sock.
And moving on, we got a list from Jeff Phil Allen from the Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling Group. And it's Terry Funk, Steve Austin, Dan Hansen, Bruiser Brody, and Barry Windham.
Hey. I wonder how many lists Bruiser Brody made. I feel like he should have probably made more.
He should have, but like you said, there's so many wrestlers from Texas. Like if you look at Zach's list, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Kerry Von Erich, The Undertaker, and Dusty Rhodes.
I like the way you say The Undertaker.
We got Albert Pettis from Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling Group.
Oh, my boy Albert.
And it's Terry Funk, Dan Hansen, Steve Austin, Dusty Rhodes, baby, and The Undertaker.
Bull of the Woods, if you will.
Bull of the Woods, baby. Now, Jake sent us a list, and what the fuck, Jake? We didn't say the top 10. You got Steve Austin. In the number 2 spot, you got Stan Hansen tied with Dusty Rhodes.
Bull of the Woods.
Tied for 3rd, you got Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero.
Latino Heat.
In 4th, you got the Widowmaker Barry Windham, and I hope you just mean Barry Windham, but you're going to use that name like... I hope you just find the name funny.
He loves that.
And then we got Terry Funk in the 5th spot.
I feel like Jake thought the assignment was just to name every Texas wrestler.
Yeah, I know at this point I thought my dad was the Widowmaker, but we got Randy Levko with the list next. He's got Steve Austin, Terry Funk. I know, I stepped on my own punchline, guys. Shawn Michaels, Dan Hansen, and The Undertaker.
First of all, line of the year, Joe. Great line. Give it room to breathe.
All right, Dad.
And laugh.
Alright, Scott from Voluntown. He's got Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Terry Funk, and Stan Hansen.
Good pussy from Voluntown. Don't forget.
Mike Flynn from Parts Unknown has Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Eddie Guerrero, Dusty Rhodes, and Keith Lee, surprisingly, but not, I wouldn't say it's an unfair vote, but he's a little on the newer end of Texas wrestlers. What do you guys think?
Not quite there yet, but man, we could be talking about him someday. He's definitely got all the potential in the world. AJ.
Dave, you're being kind with not quite there yet. He's won the North American title in NXT. He does have the tools to get there, don't get me wrong. But we have a list with some of the greatest Hall of Famers of all time.
Glad to have him on.
Hey, I'm going to give you guys my list next. I've got Shawn Michaels, Dusty Rhodes, Stone Cold, Terry Funk, and The Undertaker.
All right. AJ, I'll go. I'll let you main event this week.
Absolutely. Go for it.
HBK, Dusty Rhodes, Bull of the Woods, baby. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Terry Funk, for all you egg-sucking dogs out there, and Kerry Von Erich, which, by the way, I do want to give an honorable mention to Kevin Von Erich, who was actually my favorite of all of them, but Kerry did have the NWA World title and the WWF Intercontinental title, so that's why I went with Kerry.
Hey, little fact about Kevin. I think he might be the father of next week's guest, if I'm not mistaken. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, or this week's, depending on how this works. But yeah, he's they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah, good point. I don't know how the editing's gonna work out, so it might be this week's guest.
Yeah.
Fucking listen and find out.
Yeah. You tell them.
The main point is we continue to get top guests week after week, and you got to tune in to find out who we got.
That's right. We won't just tell you in the description of the episode. You gotta blindly tune the fuck in. Tell us, AJ.
No, you don't need blindly tune in. We just need blind allegiance.
Absolutely. Dave, was that your whole letter? DJ's been saying some wild shit. Dave, was that your whole list?
Yeah, I gave 5 plus an honorable mention.
All right, let's go. First of all, much like Dave, my favorite was Kevin Von Erich. Unlike Dave, I'm going to play favorites. Fuck you, Terry. Kevin's the man. Number 2, Tino Hernandez. Tino Hernandez, if he doesn't get killed, is one of the best heels in the history of wrestling. Along with that, another great heel in the history of wrestling, Tully Blanchard, whose father ran all the wrestling in the western part of the state from San Antonio over, was an absolutely phenomenal wrestler, great worker, great on the microphone, Tully Blanchard. Dirty Dick Murdoch, who has not been mentioned, is one of the most underrated workers and performers in the history of wrestling. He's going on there for me. I know these guys aren't going to win, guys. I have no illusion about that, but I got one more for you. And yes, it's not going to be Austin or Taker. Bruiser Brody's from Pennsylvania, not Texas. Know your Texas wrestling, you stupid motherfuckers. My number 1 Texas wrestler of all time, Dusty Rhodes. Nobody had impact on wrestling from Texas any greater than Dusty Rhodes. And my honorable mention is Terry Funk, just because I thought he would get every freaking list. And God bless him, he was. Actually, Dusty made his name in Florida, so he's not as much a Texas wrestler. He's off the list. Do not make me Bruiser Brody made his name in Texas. We're not doing like top Japanese wrestlers or something. This is why you guys are a lot safer with me being quarantined.
I'm just so happy.
Yeah, he's a genuine pro. He would grab a hold and put in something.
Let me tell you something, too, I get the comment on. Dirty Dick Murdoch, I believe, was one of your guys. It's a good pick. Dirty Dick Murdoch could also cut a hell of a promo. I believe he was famous for saying, good pussy in Voluntown.
He probably hung out in Voluntown for all those good lynching trees, right? Sorry, guys, let's change the subject because we're not racist, but the subject of our list may be.
Right.
So who do you guys see as the top 3 Texas wrestlers? It's got to be HBK, Steve Austin, and The Undertaker, right?
Did you keep track of how you got what? I mean, I felt like I heard HBK, Stone Cold on every list, but I also felt like Undertaker, Terry Funk, and Dusty made every list too.
Let's split it up between Dusty, The Undertaker, and Terry Funk. Who's on between the 3 of them?
Guys, The Undertaker, is actually from Death Valley.
I'll tell you what.
I thought you were going to discount him because he has red hair.
Let's do it. First off, redheads are great. Fuck you guys.
Shout out to Zach St. John.
Zach St. John. Redheads, good pussy. All right, so we got.
Dave continues to try to prevent us from ever getting female guests.
Welcome aboard. I don't know.
Hey, we got a 10%. Guys, to be fair, we got a 10% female listenership and a 10% non-binary.
Yeah.
So we've got the females and the kind of female.
We got everybody.
Wow.
They're all jumping aboard this dick. All right.
So let's try and narrow this down.
All right. So
definitely females, not the
let's do like a top 4. Let's do it like tournament style. Who are the top 4?
Eric, Steve Austin, Undertaker, and I think we gotta go with one of the old schools, though. I think we gotta give it to either Dusty or Terry as number 4.
Well, if that's the case, my vote would be for Dusty.
Are we skipping right to the end? Because I'm going for Dusty, too.
All right. Let's have Dusty bump off Taker. And then we have Dusty, Stone Cold, and who's the other two? Or who's the last one? HBK.
So it's going to be Stone Cold versus Shawn Michaels.
All right. Stone Cold already beat that piece of trash at WrestleMania 14. I was there. He moves on.
So now we got Dusty Rhodes versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right. Stone Cold's the man, but he ain't shit compared to Dusty Rhodes. Dusty's the greatest Texas wrestler of all time. Suck this working fan's dick.
Not bad for the son of a plumber.
What do you got, Joe?
Yeah, now he's what? I got Dusty. He's got to be the king of the Texas wrestlers, right?
He's the king of the Texas Bull Rope, man.
So here's how this is why I thought Dusty. Dusty to me is the number 1. And the reason why is when I think of Texas wrestling, as much as we think of the Texas Rattlesnake, we think of him WWE. We don't really think of him as Texas wrestling. Even though he started off in USWA, even though he has the tattoo, even though he loves Texas, that's not what I think of. Dusty Rhodes, even though he started off in Florida, I think Texas wrestling. Now, I gotta make a note. Isn't it sad that after all the Von Erichs have given for wrestling, that, I mean, they were in the discussion, but they didn't make it to the top. That's gotta say something.
Well, here's the thing. The Von Erichs are legendary. They're awesome. And, you know, if you're talking about world class, that's probably the greatest Texas wrestling promotion of all time. The problem is they stayed in that territory, really. They didn't branch out as much as Dusty and some of these other guys. Had they?
No, they reached out to Israel, though.
Oh, they're big in Israel. You'll find out when they listen. They are.
Well, not only that, but they burnt out so quickly. They were such a bright star for such a short period of time, and they burnt out so quickly.
Well, I mean, compared to some of these guys.
Yeah, you're talking about only really a 5-year span when they were on top of the world.
At the end of the day, I love me some Von Erichs. They're probably my favorites, besides Dusty, on this list. Actually, if we're going to do favorites on this list, man, I don't know. That gets tougher because, like, Kevin Von Erich, Terry Funk, HBK, and Dusty are kind of probably my favorite wrestlers on this list.
The fact of the matter is, if you ask any one of those guys we talked about who's the best, they're going to tell you Dusty. Now, are there any other states that have produced this thick a crop of wrestlers?
Yes.
Maybe Minnesota?
Yes, damn right. That's what I was going to say, Minnesota.
Not only Minnesota, but since, let's face it, they're basically the 51st state, we can do Canada.
Well, Canada has produced a lot of great wrestlers. They're not the 51st state, but actually Florida.
I thought you were going to say Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico gives us a good amount of wrestlers, too. Absolutely, but they're not good enough to be a state. We own them. They're just a territory.
Wait.
Well, goddamn, I guess we're going to end on that note.
And what Puerto Rico really gave us some wrestling community anyway? Abdul the Butcher? Fuck that guy. I never want him on this show.
Joe Morales from?
He's from Puerto Rico. We like Pedro. But Abby can suck a dick.
Yeah, well, in fairness, he did spread hepatitis.
Yes, he did.
Allegedly. And how about everybody spread the word of the Working Fans Podcast?
Yes.
We got a YouTube channel popping off. We got, obviously, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you get podcasts, we're at.
Great interviews.
Yeah, I'm trying to get us as much original content as I can for the YouTube channel.
That's right. We got it all, baby. Good pussy on the Working
right,
Fans
we'll see.
podcast. We'll see ya.
Yes, Jay, we'll see you guys next week. Take it easy. See you down the road.
Joey.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.